At my sister's rehearsal dinner, I showed up to find no seat set for me. She smirked from the head table. Oh, she purred, we only reserved seats for important guests. Parents and aristocratic relatives tittered. My dad waved me off. Don't make a scene, Hannah. I didn't. I slipped out to freshen up and set the timer on their downfall. Imagine being stripped bare, made invisible, in front of 150 of the most powerful people in your city at your own sister's $1 million wedding rehearsal dinner. That night, under the glittering chandeliers of the St. Regis, I watched them deliberately erase me. Victoria, my sister, floated by in a Vera Wang gown worth more than my annual salary, her smile radiating pure malice. Oh, darling, she purred, we only reserved seats for important guests. The room erupted in snickers. My father, Richard, didn't even look at me, just waved me away with a dismissive hand. Don't make a scene, Hannah. Make a scene? They were the scene. The scene of my utter humiliation. My name is Hannah, I'm 32, and this is the story of how I took everything from them. Everything. And I did it completely legally, without ever raising my voice. 15 years ago, my world shattered. I was 17 when my parents died, leaving me with just a suitcase and a scholarship. That's when the Reynolds family, San Francisco's old money elite, took me in. Not out of love or even kindness, but because Margaret Reynolds needed a convenient charity case to flaunt at her country club luncheons. From that day on, their mantra echoed in my ears. Remember, everything you have is because of our generosity. It usually came while I was organizing Victoria's designer closet or, insultingly, typing out her purchased college essays. Even after I clawed my way to a summa cum laude from Berkeley and an MBA from Wharton, achievements Victoria couldn't even dream of with her degree from a third-tier school, I was still just the grateful orphan in their carefully constructed narrative. I poured my life into Reynolds Holdings, working 80-hour weeks, building a $500 million portfolio through sheer grit and strategic genius. Yet, at family dinners, Richard would introduce me as Hannah, whom we've been kind enough to support. Meanwhile, Victoria, who spent her days at charity lunches and spa appointments, was lauded as the future of the company. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. Every headline-grabbing deal, every strategic masterstroke attributed to Victoria was my blood, sweat, and analysis. She'd be getting her nails done while I was negotiating 2 a.m. deals. But I stayed silent. I played my role. And I documented everything. Because when you've lost everything once, you learn to build your security in the shadows, where no one thinks to look. The routine was always the same. I'd slave over market trends, identify targets, structure deals. Then, 5 minutes before a crucial board meeting, Victoria would waltz into my office. Sister, dear, she'd coo, just email me your presentation. You know how you freeze up in front of important people. I'll handle the delivery. Her false concern was a dagger to my soul, making it sound like she was doing me a favor. 3 monumental acquisitions, Bayside Medical, Pacific Tech, Horizon Pharmaceutical, propelled Reynolds Holdings to dizzying heights, collectively worth $300 million. My email records, painstakingly archived, contained every late-night negotiation, every financial model predicting returns with 0.3% accuracy, every relationship forged. Victoria's contribution? Forwarding my work to the board, adding her signature, and a smug, please find attached my analysis and recommendations. The Bayside deal alone, where I'd identified an undervalued medical group, structured a complex equity swap, and personally swayed a skeptical founder, should have been my golden ticket to partnership. Instead, the San Francisco Business Journal blared, Victoria Reynolds, 28-year-old genius behind Reynolds Holdings' medical empire. Richard framed the article, proudly declaring, Victoria has such natural business instincts, to every visitor, while I stood silently, taking notes like a glorified secretary. We're grooming her to take over everything. The injustice gnawed at me, but what could I do? Challenge the people who provided my only roof, my only family, however toxic? So, I swallowed my pride, day after day, building their empire, one stolen achievement at a time. The real question wasn't if I'd reach my breaking point, but when. Then, 3 days before that humiliating rehearsal dinner, everything changed. My personal cell phone buzzed. It was Marcus Kim, CEO of Apex Ventures, a titan of Silicon Valley. Not through the company line, but directly to me. Hannah, his voice was calm, yet urgent. I've watched you for 5 years. That base ideal? I know who really structured it. My forensic accountants traced the digital footprints. Validation. Pure, exhilarating validation. He offered me managing partner at Apex, a $2 million base salary, 30% carry on a billion-dollar fund. My own portfolio, my own team, my own destiny. The numbers made my hands tremble. 10 times what Reynolds Holdings paid me. But there was a catch. I need your answer 72 hours after Victoria's wedding. And Hannah, you need to exit Reynolds Holdings cleanly. No lawsuits, no drama, no controversy. My heart pounded. The universe was offering me an escape. That very afternoon, Victoria sealed her own fate. I overheard her on a conference call from the next room. She had no idea how thin the walls were. Once the MedTech Innovation acquisition closes, she declared, I'm restructuring everything. First order of business, getting rid of dead weight. Hannah's been useful, but I can't have my foster sister hanging around when I'm CEO. Bad optics. My own sister. My stomach lurched. MedTech Innovation, the $50 million medical startup I'd been researching for months, identifying it as 70% undervalued. She was using my proprietary analysis, my financial models, my insider knowledge to cement her reputation. The acquisition was set to close the morning of her wedding. A public triumph. I immediately pulled up the contract she'd signed just 48 hours prior. Deep in Section 47, Subsection 3, my eyes latched onto something called Option 7. My pulse quickened. Victoria had just made a $50 million mistake. The next morning, I arrived at the office before dawn, a cold dread in my stomach, to gather my files. Victoria's door was open. Her voice, that distinctive, scheming trill, echoed down the empty hallway. She was speaking with James Morrison, Medteca's incoming CEO. The announcement goes live at 9 a.m. on my wedding day. Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, they'll all cover it. Victoria Reynolds closes historic deal on her wedding day. Can you imagine the headlines? She dissolved into giddy laughter. James, clearly uncomfortable, asked, and your team is on board with the transition? Victoria scoffed. My team? Please. The only person who knows the technical details is Hannah, and she won't be a problem much longer. I've already drafted her termination letter, effective immediately after the ceremony. Daddy will sign it during the reception. He'll be too drunk on champagne to read it. My blood ran cold. I stood frozen in the hallway, my phone silently recording every venomous word. Isn't she family? James ventured. Foster sister, Victoria snapped. We took her in out of charity. She served her purpose. Besides, I can't have someone who knows where all the bodies are buried working for competitors. The non-compete I'm adding to her termination is ironclad. She'll never work in finance again. Just then, my phone buzzed. An encrypted message from David Smith, my lawyer at Ernst & Young. Hannah, I've reviewed option 7. If triggered, it's devastating. But you need documented proof of insider trading. Do you have it? I looked at my phone, still recording Victoria's confession, then at the USB drive clutched in my hand. 5 years of her forwarded emails, claiming my confidential research as her own. I typed back, one word, everything. The St. Regis ballroom shimmered, a jewel box of crystal and gold. 150 aristocrats, draped in designer clothes, sipped champagne, searching for their gold-plated place cards. I walked the perimeter, scanning the white orchids and silk-draped tables. Nothing. No card for me. Looking for something, darling? Victoria materialized beside me, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. My seat, I said, my voice betraying nothing. Where am I sitting? She touched my arm with a perfectly manicured claw. Oh, Hannah. Budget constraints, you understand? We had to prioritize actual important guests. I'm your sister, I countered, my voice flat. Foster sister, she corrected, a predatory gleam in her eyes as Senator Whitmore approached. There's a difference. We're family by circumstance, not choice. Then Richard appeared, his hand on my shoulder. Hannah, don't make this difficult. If you're hungry, the kitchen staff has a break room. The entire room had gone silent. 150 pairs of eyes, all watching the orphan learn her place. But among them, at table 2, were 3 executives from Apex Ventures, Marcus Kim's people. They saw everything. Margaret, floating in Chanel, chimed in, "Dear, this is a sophisticated event. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere." "You're right," I said, my voice steady as granite, a steel core forming within me. "I would be more comfortable elsewhere." Victoria's laugh, shrill and triumphant, echoed across the ballroom. Finally, some self-awareness. As I turned to leave, I deliberately pulled out my phone, making sure she saw. "If you'll excuse me, I have some calls to make." "Don't bother coming to the wedding tomorrow," she shrieked after me. "Security will have instructions." The ballroom erupted in laughter. I stopped at the grand double doors, turned back, and gave her a slow, genuine smile. The first real smile in 15 years. "Oh, Victoria," I whispered, loud enough for her to hear. I wouldn't miss it for the world. In the silent parking garage, I sat in my Tesla, my hands steady as I dialed David Smith. 3 rings, then his crisp British accent. "Hannah, I'm at the office. Are you ready? Execute option 7. "Everything we discussed," I confirmed. "You're certain? Once we file with the SEC, there's no going back." I thought of 15 years of being erased, minimized, the foster girl who learned to survive by being invisible. Of that termination letter already drafted, waiting for tomorrow. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. "Sending the forensic audit now," I said. 127 pages documenting insider trading, securities fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. The evidence was overwhelming. Timestamps, financial records, Victoria's forged signatures on my work. And the damning trail showing she'd used my confidential medtech analysis to structure her purchase, an analysis that contained fabricated projections I'd cleverly planted 6 months ago as a test. She never bothered to verify them. "David, there's something else." I forwarded him the recording from this morning. She admitted to planned wrongful termination and anti-competitive practices. "Brilliant," David responded. "The FBI will be very interested." "Hannah," he continued, "do you understand what happens at 9 a.m. tomorrow?" "Yes," I replied, a cold thrill running through me. "Victoria announces the medtech acquisition to 200 investors. The press will be there for her wedding day triumph story. And that's when we reveal I own 51% of medtech through offshore holdings. Every dollar she thinks she's spending is actually mine." I started the timer on my phone. 14 hours until Victoria's world imploded. "David, make sure Ernst and Young's senior partners are there. I want this done by the book." "Hannah," he said, a note of admiration in his voice, "after tomorrow, you'll never be invisible again." "Good," I whispered. "I'm done hiding in shadows." This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment revenge. This was years in the making. 5 years ago, I saved Marcus Kim's career. Apex Ventures was on the brink of a hostile takeover. Victoria, of course, was supposed to handle it, but she was off in Cabo. I worked 72 hours straight, structuring a complex deal that brought in 3 sovereign wealth funds as defensive investors. When Marcus asked how to thank me, I simply said, "Remember this moment. Someday, I might need a door open that only you can open." He kept his word. 3 years ago, he introduced me to offshore fund managers in the Cayman Islands. "Build your ark before the flood, Hannah," he advised, "and never let them see you building it." Through 3 distinct, untraceable funds, Prometheus Capital, Phoenix Holdings, Resurrection Investments, I quietly began acquiring strategic positions in companies Reynolds Holdings would eventually target. My Reynolds Holdings salary was a pittance, but my consulting fees to these funds, paid for my analytical work, were substantial. Every dollar went right back into these hidden acquisitions. 6 months ago, medtech innovation landed on my radar. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, its brilliant founder, was desperate for capital. I approached her through Prometheus Capital with an offer, seed funding for 51% equity, but with a crucial twist. My ownership would remain cloaked, hidden behind impenetrable legal structures, until I chose to reveal it. Why the secrecy? She'd asked. Because someone is going to try and steal this company using my own research. When they do, I want them to sign every document, make every public announcement, and commit completely before they ever realize who truly owns it. The share certificates were filed in 3 jurisdictions, unassailable. My name was nowhere. Yet, everything led back to me. Victoria's fatal mistake wasn't just arrogance, it was pure, unadulterated laziness. The 200-page medtech contract she gleefully signed? She'd skimmed it, signed it, and toasted with champagne. She never bothered to read Section 47, Subsection 3, Option 7. The clause was elegantly simple. Any breach of fiduciary duty, including the use of illegally obtained proprietary information, triggers immediate asset transfer to the majority shareholder. I had insisted Dr. Mitchell include it, knowing Victoria's pattern. And Victoria had walked right into it, using my stolen analysis, an analysis I'd intentionally seeded with inflated projections for a cardiac device that didn't even exist. It was a trap, and she fell for it. The email trail was damning, Victoria forwarding my confidential analysis to James Morrison with the subject line, "My research on medtech, do not share." The metadata confirmed she never even opened my original file. She just forwarded it within 30 seconds. Securities fraud. Claiming work she'd never even read. But the masterpiece was the timestamp correlation. Every trade Victoria made in the days before the announcement perfectly aligned with when she'd accessed my files. The SEC's algorithm would flag it immediately as insider trading. She'd used my material non-public information to manipulate Reynolds holding stock for maximum gain. David Smith ran the numbers. "Hannah, she's violated 7 different SEC regulations. Penalties alone will exceed $5 million. Criminal charges, she's looking at potential jail time." "I don't want her in jail," I replied, my voice chillingly calm. "I want her to live with the consequences every single day for the rest of her life." The morning of Victoria's wedding dawned impossibly perfect. Clear skies, a gentle breeze, the San Francisco Bay glittering like scattered diamonds. The St. Regis Grand Ballroom, transformed overnight, was a wonderland of white roses and gold. 200 chairs faced a stage where the signing ceremony would take place at precisely 9 a.m. The guest list? A who's who of the Fortune 500, tech CEOs, venture capitalists, hedge fund managers, and, crucially, Senator Whitmore's entire political network, including 3 members of the Senate Banking Committee. The press section overflowed with reporters from the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg, all personally invited by Victoria to cover her historic deal. "This will be the deal of the decade," she'd crowed to Bloomberg yesterday, a new model for female leadership in tech acquisitions. I watched from the lobby, my eyes glued to the hotel security monitors. At 8:45 a.m., David Smith and 3 senior partners from Ernst & Young entered, their faces professionally neutral, taking seats in the 3rd row, briefcases at their feet. At 8:50 a.m., 5 FBI agents in dark suits moved in quietly, spreading out across the ballroom's exits, not blocking them, but positioning themselves strategically. The lead agent, Sarah Coleman, gave David a subtle nod. My phone buzzed. "Marcus Kim. We're here. Table 2. The other Apex partners want to see this." At 8:55 a.m., Victoria swept in through a side entrance in her custom Vera Wang wedding dress, a creation costing more than most people's annual salaries. Her smile was radiant, her confidence absolute. She had no idea that Option 7 had been triggered at midnight. She had no idea her entire world was about to collapse in front of everyone who mattered. Victoria commanded the stage, a queen on her throne. The spotlight bathed her Vera Wang gown in an ethereal glow as 200 of San Francisco's elite applauded. "Good morning, everyone," she beamed into the microphone. "Before I marry the love of my life in 3 hours, I wanted to share something extraordinary." She paused, a master of theatricality. "Today, Reynolds Holdings completes the acquisition of MedTech Innovation, a $50 million deal that will revolutionize cardiac care in America." Thunderous applause erupted. Senator Whitmore beamed. Richard and Margaret glowed with proud delusion. "This acquisition," Victoria continued, gesturing to my financial projections, now branded with her signature, represents everything I believe in: female leadership, innovative thinking, bold moves. They said I was too young, too inexperienced, but here I am, about to enter the billion-dollar club before my 30th birthday. The audience was mesmerized. Reporters typed furiously. This was her moment. Her coronation. Now, let's make history. She hoisted the gold-plated pen. Who's ready to witness the deal of the decade? The crowd roared. No one noticed David Smith rising from his seat, or the FBI agents subtly closing ranks. I remained in the back, invisible, as always, for a few more agonizing seconds. Victoria's pen hovered above the signature line. Then, David Smith's voice sliced through the celebration like a surgeon's scalpel. "Miss Reynolds, I need you to stop." "Who?" The ballroom fell silent. David, calm and deliberate, walked towards the stage, his Ernst and Young lanyard glinting. Two senior partners flanked him, carrying sealed folders marked Confidential SEC Filing. "I'm David Smith, Senior Forensic Auditor with Ernst and Young. We have an urgent matter requiring immediate disclosure to all parties present." Victoria's smile froze. "This is highly inappropriate." "Security." But the security guards were already looking at the FBI agents, who had subtly blocked any interference. Senator Whitmore was on his feet, his face darkening. "What is the meaning of this?" David reached the stage. "Ms. Reynolds, before you sign that document, you should know that as of midnight last night, Option 7 in your original purchase agreement has been triggered." "Option 7? Victoria's voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" "Section 47, subsection 3 of the contract you signed 48 hours ago," David recited. "The clause that transfers all assets to the majority shareholder in case of fiduciary breach." He opened his folder, revealing a document with multiple official seals. "We've been retained to inform you that you no longer have the authority to complete this transaction." The press section exploded. Cameras flashed. Bloomberg's reporter was already live tweeting. Richard Reynolds pushed forward. "This is ridiculous. My daughter owns this deal." "No, Mr. Reynolds," David said, his voice unwavering. "She doesn't. And in approximately 60 seconds, the actual owner will explain why." Victoria's face, beneath her flawless makeup, went ghost white. "This is impossible. Who would dare?" "Miss Reynolds," David interjected, "please remain where you are." The presentation screen behind her flickered to life. David's team had connected their laptop, and suddenly, 127 pages of forensic analysis flashed in rapid succession: financial records, email timestamps, trading patterns. At the center of it all, a name that made Victoria gasp: Hannah Reynolds, beneficial owner. "This is a comprehensive SEC filing documenting securities fraud, insider trading, and breach of fiduciary duty," David's voice boomed. "Every trade Miss Victoria Reynolds made in the past 6 months was based on stolen proprietary information." The evidence was methodical, devastating. Email after email of Victoria forwarding my analysis as her own, bank records showing suspicious transfers timed with confidential information she'd accessed. And then, the smoking gun, her own recorded confession from 3 days ago, her chilling words filling the ballroom: "Hannah's been useful, but I can't have my foster sister hanging around when I'm CEO." Bad optics. Senator Whitmore erupted. "This is entrapment. It's illegal." "No, Senator," FBI agent Coleman stepped forward, her badge prominent. "Everything here was obtained legally. We've been investigating Ms. Reynolds for 3 months based on SEC whistleblower complaints. This event just accelerated our timeline." The screen changed again. 3 offshore companies appeared: Prometheus Capital, Phoenix Holdings, Resurrection Investments. Arrows connected them to a single point: beneficial owner Hannah Reynolds, 51% of MedTech Innovation. Victoria stumbled backward, clutching her throat. "That's impossible. Hannah is nobody." "She's just what, Ms. Reynolds?" David's voice was pure ice. "Just the person who actually negotiated every deal you took credit for? Just the analyst whose work you've been stealing for 5 years? Just the majority owner of the company you thought you were buying?" The ballroom plunged into chaos. Phones flashed, recording everything. The Wall Street Journal reporter was on a live call with her editor. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a public execution. By the way, if you're still with me, if you're as gripped by this story of betrayal and quiet vengeance as I am, then you're definitely going to want to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories are coming, trust me on that. Asterisk, and then, for the most shocking part. I walked through the main entrance, my heels clicking like a countdown on the marble floor. Every single head turned. I had chosen my outfit with surgical precision, a black Tom Ford power suit, understated elegance that whispered power, not screamed it. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. I walked past the Reynolds family table where Margaret sat, frozen, a deer in headlights. Past Senator Whitmore, his face purple with fury. Past the press section, where cameras tracked my every deliberate step. 3 Apex Ventures executives stood as I passed, a silent acknowledgement of respect. I climbed the stage stairs without hurrying. Victoria stood there in her $50,000 wedding dress, looking like a caught child. For the first time in 15 years, we weren't equals. For the first time, I stood above her. "Good morning," I said into the microphone, my voice steady, professional, utterly calm. "I'm Hannah Reynolds, the majority shareholder of MedTech Innovation." The ballroom erupted. Cameras flashed like violent strobe lights. Richard Reynolds lunged towards the stage, but FBI agents moved swiftly to block his path. I waited for the chaos to subside, my gaze fixed on Victoria. "You," she whispered, the microphone amplifying her shattered voice. "You're nothing. You're nobody. You're just the charity case we took in." "Yes," I replied, my voice unwavering. I was the charity case. The foster child you reminded daily of her place. The workhorse whose achievements you stole. I turned to address the audience. But I'm also the person who owns 51% of MedTech Innovation through completely legal offshore holdings established 3 years ago. Every document Ms. Reynolds signed, every announcement she made, every dollar she thought she was spending, it's all mine. The PowerPoint presentation resumed, displaying my complete, meticulously structured ownership. David Smith narrated with clinical precision as 3 years of careful planning unfolded on screen. 6 months ago, Miss Hannah Reynolds, through Prometheus Capital, provided seed funding to MedTech Innovation in exchange for 51% equity. Share certificates from 3 jurisdictions flashed on screen. The ownership was structured through Cayman Islands, Delaware, and Luxembourg entities. All completely legal. All properly filed. The next slide showed my MedTech analysis, the one Victoria had stolen. David zoomed in, highlighting a section in red. This cardiac device projection, showing 300% returns, it doesn't exist. Miss Hannah Reynolds invented it as a trap, knowing Victoria would steal the analysis without verification. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's legs buckled. "You set me up," she shrieked. "No," I stated clearly. "You stole proprietary information and committed securities fraud." I simply documented it. I clicked to the next slide, email timestamps, login records, showing Victoria accessing my files and forwarding them within seconds, claiming credit. "You never even opened the documents you claimed to author." An FBI agent stepped forward. "Miss Victoria Reynolds, we have questions regarding insider trading activities. You've made 17 trades based on material non-public information stolen from Miss Hannah Reynolds." But the final blow was still coming. I clicked to the last slide, option 7 triggered. The clause appeared in full. Each word a nail in Victoria's coffin. Due to breach of fiduciary duty, all rights to MedTech Innovation transfer immediately to the majority shareholder. The $50 million Reynolds Holdings wired yesterday? It's being returned with penalties for contract violation. Victoria's collapse was total, public. This is impossible. She grabbed the microphone, her voice shrill with desperation. "She's nobody. She's just the foster kid. Daddy, tell them." Richard Reynolds tried to reach the stage, but his path was blocked. "This is a family matter. Everyone out." "Actually, Senator Whitmore's voice boomed across the ballroom, slowly rising, his political instincts already in damage control mode. "This is a federal matter. Miss Reynolds, he said, turning to Victoria, you told my son you were a successful CEO. You told me you built Reynolds Holdings' portfolio yourself. These are all lies. Victoria spun towards me, her wedding dress tangling around her legs. You planned this. You ungrateful, Miss Reynolds. FBI agent Coleman interrupted, stepping onto the stage. We need to see your phone and laptop immediately. Thomas Whitmore Jr., the groom, stood from his table, his voice cutting through the silence. The wedding is off. He looked at Victoria with undisguised disgust. My family doesn't associate with criminals. Thomas, please. Victoria reached for him, but he recoiled. This is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Thomas laughed bitterly. You committed federal crimes. You've been lying to everyone, including me. He turned to his father. We're leaving. The press was in a frenzy. Miss Reynolds, how do you respond to allegations of securities fraud? Shouted the Forbes reporter. Is it true you've been stealing credit for 5 years? Victoria looked around wildly, searching for allies. Her bridesmaids had backed away. Her parents stood frozen. 200 of San Francisco's most powerful people watched her designer facade crumble in real time. She was radioactive now, and everyone knew it. Hannah, she whispered into the microphone, tears streaming, ruining her $3,000 makeup, please. The legal machinery moved with chilling efficiency. 2 SEC enforcement agents approached the stage with official documents. Victoria Reynolds, you're being served with a cease and desist order. All your financial accounts are frozen pending investigation. David Smith pulled up his tablet, reading from an official notice. As of 9:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Securities and Exchange Commission has initiated formal proceedings against Victoria Reynolds for violations of Section 10(b) of the Securities Exchange Act and Rule 10b-5. Richard Reynolds finally pushed through to the stage, his face purple with impotent rage. This is corporate assassination. I'll sue everyone in this room. Mr. Reynolds, Agent Coleman said calmly, Reynolds Holdings stock has been suspended from trading on the NYSE. The company has lost 40% of its value in the past 15 minutes. Margaret Reynolds fainted. 2 guests caught her. The press photographers didn't miss a shot. I pulled out my phone, showing a trading screen to the audience. I shorted Reynolds Holdings stock at 9 a.m. this morning. Completely legal when you're not using insider information. Just publicly available evidence of fraud. The profit counter showed $12 million and climbing. These funds, I announced, will be donated to foster care organizations across California. You destroyed us. Richard screamed. After everything we did for you. No, I replied evenly. Victoria destroyed you when she chose to steal, lie, and commit fraud. I simply exposed the truth. The Wall Street Journal reporter raised her hand. Miss Hannah Reynolds, what happens to MedTech innovation now? The company continues under my leadership, I stated. Dr. Mitchell and I have real innovations to bring to market. Legitimate ones that will actually save lives. We don't need fake projections or stolen research. Victoria was led off stage by SEC agents, her opulent wedding dress train dragging behind her like a fallen flag. Richard and Margaret Reynolds stood before me, their aristocratic composure shattered. The ballroom had quieted, 200 guests leaning in for the final confrontation. How could you do this to family? Margaret's voice trembled, her perfect society facade cracking. What family? I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the sound system. Let me remind you what family means to you. My recording from the rehearsal dinner filled the ballroom. Margaret's cultured voice. Asterisk, dear, this is a sophisticated event. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere. Asterisk, then Richard's dismissive tone. Asterisk, Hannah, don't make this difficult. If you're hungry, the kitchen staff has a break room. Asterisk, a collective murmur swept through the crowd. Several society matrons who knew Margaret looked utterly appalled. The recording continued with Victoria's sneering voice. Asterisk, we're family by circumstance, not choice. Asterisk, you taught me everything I know about family, I said, disconnecting the phone. You taught me that family is transactional. That love has conditions. That worth is measured by bank accounts and bloodlines. I looked at them steadily. So I learned to play by your rules. And I won. We raised you. Richard sputtered. Fed you. Educated you. You used me, I corrected. For 15 years, I was your unpaid servant, your tax write-off, your charity case to parade at galas. I gestured to the screen, still showing Medteca's ownership. But while you were teaching Victoria to take credit for my work, I was learning from the best. You showed me that in your world, only power matters. So I acquired it. Margaret found her voice again, weak. We can work this out. You're still family. No. The word cut through her plea like a knife. I was never family to you. And now I never will be. There's one more thing. I clicked to a new slide, the Reynolds Holdings ownership structure. A new name, highlighted in gold, Hannah Reynolds, 30% shareholder. The ballroom exploded. Richard staggered backward. That's impossible. Our shares aren't publicly traded. They became available 90 seconds ago, I clarified, when the stock crashed 40%. I showed the Bloomberg terminal on my phone. Distressed asset funds controlled by Apex Ventures purchased every share that panicked board members dumped. Those shares were immediately transferred to me as part of my signing bonus. Marcus Kim stood from table 2, his voice carrying across the room. As of this moment, Hannah Reynolds is the largest individual shareholder of Reynolds Holdings. The board. Richard gasped. The board has already been notified, I finished. An emergency shareholder meeting has been called for Monday morning. The agenda has one item, your removal as CEO. I looked at the 3 board members present in the audience. I believe we have quorum for a preliminary vote. One by one, 3 hands raised. The vote was unanimous. You can't do this. Margaret shrieked. That company is our legacy. Your legacy is built on my work, my strategies, my sleepless nights, I countered, pulling out a folder David had handed me. This is a forensic audit of Reynolds Holdings. Every major deal for the past 5 years shows the same pattern. My work, Victoria's signature, your approval. The board has seen it. The SEC has seen it. Your investors have seen it. Richard's phone buzzed incessantly. He looked at it with trembling hands. The credit lines. The banks are calling everything in. Yes, I said simply. When you build an empire on lies, it only takes one truth to bring it down. Within minutes, the story went global. The Wall Street Journal's push notification. Breaking. Foster daughter exposes billion-dollar fraud, takes control of Reynolds Holdings. Forbes followed. The most epic corporate revenge story of 2025, how Hannah Reynolds destroyed her adoptive family's empire in 24 hours. Bloomberg was more clinical, but equally damning. Reynolds Holdings loses $200 million market cap after SEC fraud investigation. Founder's daughter arrested at own wedding. I stood on stage, watching the metrics roll in on my phone. Victoria's name was trending #1 on Twitter with #FraudBride. Someone had already created a Wikipedia page, MedTech Innovation Scandal. My LinkedIn exploded. 50,000 new followers in 20 minutes, 10 CEO connection requests, messages from every major venture fund. Reporters pressed forward. Miss Reynolds, what made you decide to act now? They gave me no choice, I replied simply. Last night, they literally told me I wasn't important enough for a seat at the table. This morning, Victoria was going to fire me and destroy my career with an illegal non-compete. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. What happens to Victoria now? That's for the justice system to decide. The evidence speaks for itself. A notification popped up. A text from Dr. Mitchell, watching the news. Our real cardiac device just got FDA approval. Perfect timing. I smiled. The first genuine smile in this entire ordeal. If you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. MedTech Innovation has actual life-saving technology to bring to market. No lies, no stolen research, just real innovation. As I walked off stage, the Forbes reporter called out, one last question. Was it worth it? I paused. Ask me when Victoria's sentence is announced. The justice system, for once, moved with blinding speed. Within 72 hours, Victoria Reynolds became a permanent cautionary tale. The SEC's investigation unearthed even more of her deception, falsified credentials, paid for awards, ghostwritten articles. FINRA issued a lifetime ban from the securities industry. She couldn't even work as a janitor in finance. The judge's words were scathing. Miss Reynolds represents the worst kind of corporate fraud, stealing intellectual property from a family member while perpetrating securities violations. The personal consequences were equally brutal. Her $5 million fine wiped out her trust fund. 200 hours of community service, teaching financial literacy to foster youth. The irony was palpable. Her once glamorous Instagram went dark. Society friends vanished. The country club revoked the family's membership. Thomas Whitmore Jr. gave a scathing interview to Vanity Fair. I dodged a bullet. Imagine being married to someone capable of such deception. From princess to pariah in 72 hours, every agonizing second of her downfall captured in 4K. 2 weeks later, Richard and Margaret, through their lawyer, requested a meeting. I agreed, but on my terms, in my new office at Apex Ventures. They looked older, smaller, their aristocratic veneer completely shattered. Richard's hair was gray, Margaret's hands trembled, clutching a modest purse, not her usual Hermes. The banks had frozen most of their assets. Hannah, Richard began, his voice devoid of its usual authority, we need to talk about the family company. Reynolds Holdings, I stated, is no longer a family company. It's a publicly traded corporation, and I am its largest shareholder. But we're still family, Margaret pleaded, tears welling. Whatever happened, we raised you. You housed me, I corrected, my voice level, professional. There's a difference. For 15 years, you ensured I knew I wasn't really family. Now you want to claim me because I have something you need. We made mistakes, Richard admitted, the words visibly costing him, but we can start over. No. I stood, signaling the meeting's end. You had 15 years to treat me as family. That window is permanently closed. My lawyers will handle any necessary communication regarding Reynolds Holdings. Margaret began to sob. Please. We have nothing left. You have each other, I said, my voice unwavering. You have your blood daughter. That should be enough, since you always told me blood is what makes a family. I pressed the intercom. Security, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds out. As security arrived, Richard made one last desperate attempt. This isn't over. If you contact me again outside of proper legal channels, I said, I'll file a restraining order. I returned to my desk, pulling up Medteca's quarterly projections. Goodbye. They left, and I never saw them again. 6 months later, I stood at the podium of the Moscone Center, addressing 2,000 people at TechCrunch Disrupt. As managing partner of Apex Ventures, I announced our new initiative, a $100 million fund exclusively for female founders. The Phoenix Fund, I declared, will invest in women who've been told they're not important enough, not connected enough, not enough, because I know what it's like to be underestimated. Marcus Kim watched from the front row, a proud mentor. In 6 months, I'd grown Apex's portfolio from $1 billion to $2 billion, leveraging my network of previously invisible talent, the real assistants, analysts, and associates doing the work while others took credit. MedTech Innovation, now Phoenix Innovations, closed a Series B at a $5 billion valuation. Dr. Mitchell's actual cardiac device was saving lives across 3 continents. We even donated the technology to Doctors Without Borders. My proudest moment came when I announced a $10 million donation to Foster Success, a nonprofit supporting aged-out foster youth. Every foster kid deserves a chance to build their own empire, I told the crowd. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile titled The Phoenix Files, How Hannah Reynolds Rose from Foster Care to Forbes 30 Under 30. They wanted the revenge angle, but I redirected them. Success is the best revenge, but boundaries are the best protection. I'm not defined by what they did to me, but by what I chose to build despite them. My phone buzzed with congratulations from CEOs worldwide. Not one message from the Reynolds family. Exactly as it should be. 1 year to the day after the wedding disaster, Phoenix Innovations went public. The IPO valued the company at $5 billion, making me worth over $2 billion on paper. I rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. wearing the same black Tom Ford suit I'd worn when I took the stage at Victoria's wedding. The contrast couldn't be starker. Richard retired in disgrace. Margaret lived in a small villa in Portugal, too ashamed to show her face in San Francisco. Victoria worked at a department store in Sacramento, the only job she could get. Someone photographed her folding clothes in the stockroom. The image went viral with the caption, "From Vera Wang to Walmart." I felt no satisfaction, just a sense of completion. The St. Regis called that week. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in purchasing their grand ballroom as a private event space. The same room where I'd been denied a seat was now offered to me. I bought it, renamed it the Phoenix Room. The first event? A gala for Foster Success, raising $15 million. I made sure every attendee had a hand-engraved place card. Everyone was important enough. That night I said, this room once represented everything I couldn't have. Now it represents everything I've built. Not through revenge, but through resilience. Not through stealing credit, but through creating value. The best response to being told you don't matter is proving that you do, on your own terms. Standing in my office, overlooking the San Francisco Bay, I often reflect on those 15 years. The Reynolds family gave me an education they never intended, a masterclass in power, perception, and patience. Family isn't about blood or legal documents. It's about who shows up when you have nothing to offer. My real family now includes Marcus Kim, Dr. Mitchell, and David Smith. Respect isn't begged for, it's commanded through competence and boundaries. The moment you accept less than you deserve, you teach others to give you less. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The Reynolds showed me for 15 years I was disposable. Victoria showed me she'd destroy anyone for success. They were telling the truth. I just took too long to listen. But the most important lesson? Document everything. Every email, every timestamp, every stolen idea. Not for revenge, but for protection. Evidence is the difference between being gaslit and being believed. Between he said, she said, and here's the proof. Our company motto, in gold letters in our lobby, your worth isn't determined by their acceptance. Success built on someone else's work is a house of cards. Success built on your own foundation, even if it takes longer, stands forever. The Reynolds empire fell in 24 hours. Phoenix innovations will outlive us all. 2 years after the wedding, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop in Palo Alto, reviewing acquisition proposals. The bell chimed. I looked up. Victoria stood in the doorway. She looked different. Off-the-rack clothes, the wear of 2 years of genuine struggle etched on her face. She approached hesitantly. Hannah, please. 5 minutes. I nodded to the chair opposite, more curious than anything. Her hands trembled. I'm sorry, she began. And for the first time, it sounded genuine. I was horrible to you. I stole from you. I tried to destroy you. There's no excuse. I waited, saying nothing. I've been in therapy, she continued. Narcissistic family systems, golden child syndrome. I was raised to believe I deserved everything without earning it. You were raised to believe you deserved nothing, despite earning everything. She met my eyes. We were both victims of our parents' dysfunction, just in different ways. That's probably true, I acknowledged. But you made choices, Victoria. Adult choices. Cruel choices. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I did. That you didn't destroy our family. I did. You just stopped enabling us. I closed my laptop, giving her my full attention. I appreciate you saying that. And I do forgive you, Victoria. For my own peace, not for your absolution. She stood to leave, then paused. Could we ever? No, I said firmly, but not unkindly. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. I wish you well. But we're done. She nodded, understanding, finally, what boundaries meant. And she left. That coffee shop, I should mention, was part of a chain I'd recently acquired. That's how I transformed from a discarded foster daughter into the CEO of a $5 billion company. This story, with names changed for legal protection, is 100% true. It taught me that sometimes, the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. And that true power isn't about bloodlines or inherited wealth, but about what you build with your own hands, your own mind. Have you ever had to draw a hard boundary with someone you once considered family? Or had a moment where you realized your worth didn't depend on someone else's acceptance? Tell me your stories in the comments below. I truly want to hear them. And if this journey of resilience and quiet vengeance resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us our worth is our own.